Welcome to Unmasking Dementia Lived Experiences, a podcast featuring families who have navigated the challenges of dementia. Through heartfelt stories, we will delve into trials, triumphs, and wisdom gained along the way. My name is Christiana I'm a registered nurse, dementia advocate, children's author specializing in dementia education, memory care specialist, owner of reputable memory care facilities in Toronto, Canada, as well as the founder of a Roseau Grammar Wellness Hub, a charitable organization that caters to the needs of communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Please join me in welcoming Beverley Harewood, a truly inspiring guest to Unmasking Dementia Lived Experiences. Beverley lost her husband only recently to dementia in 2022. It has been very difficult for her and her family. Despite the emotional challenges, her selflessness and desire to help others on their dementia journey inspired her to join us on Unmasking Dementia Lived Experiences today. She expressed, "If it will help someone, I will do it. I have to go beyond my feelings." Thank you, Beverley, for your generous offer to have this discussion today. Please remember that if at any point you feel overwhelmed or cannot continue, we will stop immediately. Your well-being is paramount, and we deeply appreciate your willingness to be here. Beverley was born in Barbados and migrated to Canada in 1969. She met her husband a year later. Together, they were blessed with 3 daughters and 8 grandchildren. Beverley and her husband cherished their walks by the lake, a pastime she especially misses in the summer months. Passionate about teaching the Bible, Beverley has been doing so periodically since she was 15. Through her adult years, she took many teaching courses and completed her biblical studies, graduating in 2022 with a Bachelor of Theology. Her hobbies include reading and working out. It's actually a very difficult coincidence that you graduated the same year you lost your husband. That must have been really difficult for you. So, how was that? Did you graduate before he passed on, or did he pass on before you finished your classes?
Oh, I finished my classes the year before in 2021. However, I waited for graduation.
Oh, you graduated in 22.
Yeah, 6 months later. And he was still alive, but I was unable to take him to the graduation because of his illness.
Okay. Just that I have both dates. That's why I was wondering. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind sharing how you navigated the challenges of caring for your beloved husband. What would you say were the very first signs that made you to suspect that he may have dementia?
There were a few red flags. And from what I could remember, the very first time he had locked himself out of his online bank account, and he had called them to have it reinstated, and that was done approximately 3 times. And he kept saying someone's locked him out of the account. I was not aware at the time that he was having dementia. Another time was we went to Niagara Falls to spend the weekend, and while we were there, he said to me, "Let's go, I'll make you some breakfast." He was unaware that we were not at home. Another time, I realized that he had paid his cell phone several times. and also his visa. And how I found that out is because I happened to look at the online account and I realized something was wrong. Up to this point, I did not realize that he was having, it was the onset of dementia. And it was after that we went to, well, we all told him, well, you're forgetting uh, basic things. So he drove himself to the doctor's office, who did an MRI on him. And sure enough, the results show that there were some issue with his the plaques in the brain. That's what she said. And it took a little while for us to understand that was dementia, because we didn't expect something like that. He was a good driver. He drove all over the States. He drove for different companies. He was a trucker. But I noticed that when he was driving, he was getting distracted on the road and he was going over the white line. Up to that point, I still had no idea something is wrong. But it was only after the results of the MRI, then I understood this is something more serious than we expected. So that was what we had to come to terms with. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when did the doctor actually give you a diagnosis of dementia, or what happened at that point after you received the result with the plaques in the brain?
Yeah, well, immediately she sent us to the
Geriatrician.
no, she sent us to a memory clinic.
Okay.
Yes. And he was further diagnosed with that.
Okay.
Yes.
That must have been tough, both for yourself and for him. So what would you say were the early or the challenges that you faced when this diagnosis was made? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
It took us quite a long time to accept it. It's like when you first receive a cancer diagnosis, you go into denial.
Yeah.
And it takes you a while to accept it, the diagnosis. So it took us a while to accept that. It was very challenging in the beginning. I was thinking this can't be happening to us. We never dreamed that this will be happening to a person who was so much in charge and always organized and so forth. So we felt a sense of numbness. This is not really happening to us as a family. Yeah. So immediately I told the children, and we all dealt with it from then on.
Mm-hmm. How was it for you emotionally? Now you have been thrust into this caregiving position, like something you did not anticipate, but now it's been thrown on your lap. How did you cope emotionally?
Well, emotionally, we dealt with it as a family. It was quite emotional in the sense that, as I said before, it was we could not come to terms with something like that. Emotionally, we just support each other, continue in church, praying. Praying was a big help.
So you are very involved in your church community, right? So, and were there, apart from the church, were you able to discuss this with the community, or did you keep it secret? Because in our cultures, we are very close-lipped about things like this, chronic diseases, diagnosis of dementia. Were you able to share it with the church community?
I shared it with my friends. I didn't have many friends, but I did share it with the few friends that I had. And I was not afraid to speak about it openly.
Okay.
However, the church that I was in, I didn't get any very little support. I don't think that people are aware how serious this illness is, lack of knowledge. So my support came from my family and few of my friends, but I had no other support at that particular time.
Yeah, like you rightly said, because of lack of awareness, people don't know what to do. They don't, it's, I often say that dementia is a very lonely disease. You have friends that will fall off. You have even families that will fall off, and it's just you and your core family. And there are some people who have no children. Then it's just
Yeah,
the two of them. So at least you're blessed to have a family around you and some friends, like you said.
yeah.
Apart from that immediate, your nuclear family and those friends, did you find any support or did you find resources in the community that you would say were helpful to you? You were lucky to be introduced to the memory clinic at the start, right? So that is amazing. Not everyone gets to have that. So apart from that, were there other community resources?
Just at the beginning of COVID, I was referred to the home care program, and he was admitted to the nursing home, and he was there for I think about 3 months. But I took him home, and that was the very first onset of the first COVID that we had. I think it was in 2019 or 2020.
2020, they call it
2020, yeah.
COVID-19, but we actually got to realize what it was in 2020. So,
Yes. So he was there for a few months, and he was not eating. He had stopped eating. And I thought, well, something is seriously wrong. And I brought him out, and I took care of him at home. I also had respite care. That didn't work out because he got worse.
Oh.
He was better at home. We also took him to an adult day program, and he didn't like it at all. He went for maybe a week, and he said, no, that's not for me. So we brought him home. So there were resources, but he was not compliant at all. So we brought him home, and then after we sent him back to the hospital later in 2021, he was really bad then. He was very aggressive and verbally aggressive, and he didn't know who we were. So I sent him, he was at Whitby Hospital for a little while, and then he was transferred to a nursing home. When we had the second bout of COVID, I brought him home, and that was January 22. And he was home ever since then. But there were resources there for us, but it's just that either made him worse or he just wasn't compliant with the care.
Okay. As a caregiver, there are also resources out there for you. Were you able to harness any of these resources for yourself?
At the time, I was not aware of any for a caregiver. I had no knowledge of resources for caregivers at that time.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's, see, with this disease, even though I know there are a lot of resources out there, it's really difficult for caregivers to find out about these resources if the people that are caring or supporting them, like the home care that your husband was getting support from, if only a coordinator had told you, maybe, or even your doctor has said, reach out to the Alzheimer's Society, reach out to other community agencies where you could have maybe group support or those type of supports just for yourself. Because it was COVID, you could have probably had virtual support where you can talk to other caregivers and you can learn about things that they are going through, because shared experiences are really important. They can encourage and enlighten, and that is why I'm doing this podcast, so that other people that are on this journey can hear from people like yourself, hear from what you went through, and maybe learn one or two things from it. Because dementia does not affect two people exactly the same way. Like, one person with dementia is one person with dementia. They don't exhibit the same symptoms, though they are common.
Sorry, I was referred to the Alzheimer's Society, but only after he passed away.
Oh, okay. So were you able to get support through their support groups?
I found that it was making me more depressed
Okay.
because we were in a group, it was virtual, and just listening to everyone's experiences, and men were crying and so on. I couldn't stay there. Yeah, it was too overwhelming.
Yes, yeah.
At that time, yeah.
If only you had something leading up to that and been able to build
Yes.
yourself up to that. But like I've met your daughter. I know that you are from a very close-knit family and you've got a lot of support within the family. So my next question would be, what, if any, information would you wish you had known, while you were caregiving for your husband?
The challenges of a caregiver. And I found that would have been helpful. I had some knowledge of dementia or Alzheimer's before my husband got sick. However, I never imagined the challenges of being a caregiver. If I had that information, it probably would have helped me to cope a bit better, looking after him. So I learned as I went on.
Yeah.
According to the experiences, I just learned from them. Right. But it was very difficult for me and my family, extremely difficult. Things happened that I did not expect.
Yeah. Especially when you said that he became verbally aggressive and so forth. See, I think according to research, up to maybe 40% of people with dementia will develop responsive behaviors, right? Which can come in as verbal or physical aggression. And it makes it really difficult for families. And when you don't know how to deal with that, it's really, really hard. And, it also leaves some bad feelings because sometimes family don't understand that it's a disease. They think that the person is just doing it just to be spiteful, especially when this is in the early part of the disease where your loved one can be very lucid one moment and you think there's nothing wrong. The doctor must have made a mistake. And then the next minute they start acting out of sorts. My advice to families usually is that when your loved one has dementia, do everything you can, learn all you can about the disease, try to reach out and get as much information. Unfortunately, some of the people that are dealing with this situation are older and they don't have access or the technical know-how to seek information online. So that is why through a Rose for Grandma Wellness Hub, a charitable organization that I started, we try to help families and provide resources. I feel like a lot needs to be done at the grassroots level, at the family doctors' clinics, in community settings like the church, like, things like that. And that is why also this podcast is very important because the more people know about dementia, the better it is. As you know, I also write children's books. I feel like, we cannot overemphasize the importance of knowing what dementia is, even as early as elementary school. So I'm so glad that in spite of the pain that you feel at this point, you're still willing to share with people, what you went through, and hopefully someone will hear and learn from your experience. I just want to ask you this question. In hindsight, and looking at all the lessons that you learned, right, through this process, while you were navigating the care for your husband. What is that thing? What is that one nugget, or maybe two, or maybe you might have even more that you would give to a caregiver that is going through the same process as you did? Maybe somebody who doesn't have enough information, maybe someone who doesn't know that there are resources out there. What would you say to someone that you think will be really helpful to them?
Well, there were some aspects of taking care of him that I think I failed because there were times I got really frustrated with him. Like you said, it's not the person, it's the disease. And expect a person if you're looking after the person at home, then you can expect some sleepless nights. There was a lot of sleepless nights. Now, that was a choice that we made to take care of him at home for the final months. We looked after him from January 22 to when he passed away in October. Before he was even sick years ago, we decided among ourselves that that's the way we would like to leave this world, him and I, when we got older. So I honored that request of his to take care of him at home. And I felt kind of obligated to look after him. But we have to treat the person, don't look at the person of themselves, look at the person that they used to be. Remember that, recall the good moments, say that's not him or her. This is the disease, it's a disease of the brain, basically. And he was physically healthy, except for that one little nugget there. So one thing I did was familiarize the person, bring out new photos from old photos. If they like music, whatever their passion was, we can get them engaged in that. If it's a certain type of music that they like, play that music constantly. And that was what we did for that whole 9 months. Played music, his favorite music, and he tuned into it. Even though his words were not intelligible at the end, he knew, he recognized the music that we played for him. So these are things that we can do for our loved ones. Bring the music that they're used to, and who knows what's happening in their minds.
Yeah.
They can connect to that even though they cannot verbalize it. So that kept him calm for those months. The last 8 months, he was really calm. If they like certain games, even though they might not be able to communicate what's happening, take the games out and just show them, put it in front of them. And it might just register to them and keep them quiet. Every situation is different, of course.
Yeah.
But I think another thing I found, don't ever speak to them in a patronizing way. Like, okay, make me feel like I am in charge right now. I am the boss. I am in charge. You got to hear what you got to do this. You got to do this, because they might get angry. So there's a lot of things actually that I learned the hard way. Yeah, but those things will help. And also plan ahead for caregivers. Plan ahead. Do you want the person to pass away at home or in a hospital or a nursing home? It's a family decision, really. It's a family decision. But I think most people want to pass away at home. Most seniors will love to pass away at their home, but it doesn't work out like that. And we know that's not reality for everyone, of course, right? But they're more comfortable among their loved ones. We were all here, all grandchildren, we were all here. So that gave us some comfort. And another thing also, I find that I tend to, sometimes I go back and say, what could I have done differently? Because you tend to, sometimes me personally, I feel like there's something else I could have done. What else could I have done to prolong his life, so the guilt trip.
Yes, of course.
You do
Caregiver
go through a
grief.
guilt trip.
Guilt.
I have
Yeah.
gone through
Yeah.
that. I have gone through the guilt trip, so yeah.
I just want to say that, dementia does not come with um a guide, right? So
Mhm.
you had to roll with the punches. You learned
Mhm.
as you went
Mhm.
along, and you
Mhm.
guys did really well. The caregiver guilt is something that is real. But that is where also getting help, even though your husband has passed, also getting some counseling, to talk through those things. You did everything that you knew you could do for him. Getting frustrated is
Mhm.
normal. You are human. You get tired, sleeping. Again, these are things that, it's so important for people to know. And it's so important that caregivers, accept help when they can get it. There are lots of caregivers who just want to do it by themselves and they don't accept help. So
Mhm.
caring for yourself, you said so many things. You talked about, how it's not the individual, it's the disease, right? That is causing the person to behave in such a way. Actually, you said so many things that I was trying to respond to. You talked about dancing, music rather. So that is basically what you described there is what we call person-centered care. Whether you are caring for your loved one at home or professional caregivers in a facility, knowing the
Mhm.
person, knowing their history, knowing what they like, and treating them with respect and dignity. Dementia does not make you any less of who you are, right?
Mhm.
It does not make you any less of a person. Giving that respect and helping to help that individual, even if they can't do things the way they used to,
Mhm.
simplify the steps.
Mhm.
Support them with things that they cannot do. Yes, people will decline to the point where they may not be able to do anything anymore. Stimulation is so important physically, mentally, because that keeps them going, giving people
Mhm.
purpose, as well. Music, dancing, I mean, that is the food for the soul. It
Mhm.
touches and reaches everyone. We do that a lot at Alexis Lodge. We do a lot of dancing, and we're
Mhm.
fortunate enough to participate in the Dancer Not Dementia
Mhm.
documentary film that was done by the National Ballet School of Canada,
Mhm.
with other agencies, I think Public Health, Alzheimer's Society of Canada, and all that. It removes, the goal is to eradicate stigma around dementia. When you are, like I often tell people, when you're in the dance floor, you're not judging, you're not saying, oh, that person has dementia. That, you just, everyone is having fun. So fun activities that make people happy, going for walks, knowing that person, even if somebody comes to me as a professional caregiver, excuse me, the best way I can care for them is to know their history, to know their likes and dislikes and stuff like that. So thank you so much. Those were things that you um experientially provided for your husband. Like no one taught you, but you were able to figure these things out with your family and you made him comfortable. Not everyone will have the benefit of having their loved one at home with them when they do come to the end stage or the end of life. Even in facilities, it is so important. I think most healthcare facilities, even the hospitals, apart from the initial part of COVID, when someone is palliative, they usually relax the rules so that family can be there. So, like at Alexis Lodge, when someone is at the end of their lives over there, the families are welcome to stay overnight, be with them until that moment when they take their last breath. I mean, the best thing is to be surrounded with love and your family when that time comes. So I applaud you and your family for the great work you did. You may still have those twinges of doubts and the guilt, but just know that you did the best you could in the situation. And I just especially want to thank you for taking the time, in spite of the pain that you still feel, to be
Yeah.
here. And I wish you continuous
Thank you.
healing. Yeah.
You're
God be
welcome.
with you and your family.
You're
Thank
very
you
welcome.
so
And thank
much.
you too for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. All the best.
God bless you. Thank
Yes,
you.
you too.